Welcome to SkyeTeam's People First with Morag Barrett.
Welcome to this week's episode of People First, where I can guarantee fun. Because my guest this week is Dr. Bob Nelson. And if you're sitting there going, huh? The reality is you probably do know him because he has sold more than 5 million copies of his numerous books. He's a prolific writer. And his work is all about how do you create a culture where people want to come to work and where employees routinely go over and above and give that elusive discretionary effort that we hear about in the engagement research. And where employees are excited and proud to say, yes, I work at that company and for that brand. But we're here today to talk about Dr. Bob's latest book, Work Made Fun Gets Done. And I know, Dr. Bob, you've got a copy for me right there.
I do. Here you go.
Oh, wow. Look at that, by the magic of the interwebs. So Work Made Fun Gets Done. We're going to come to this in just a moment, Dr. Bob. But I want to actually start with your origin story. So if you go back when you were a wee lad, I ought to have some music for this. When you were a wee lad, what did you think or want to be when you were grown up?
Okay, well, my earliest remembrance is a minister when I was probably 6. And then I wanted to be, my dad was in the Air Force, and so of course I wanted to do what my dad did, but he told me don't do that. And then I mentioned politics to him. I said, no, you don't want to be a politician. So life is what happens when you're making other plans. But I did want to be a writer. I remember in the writing forefront in high school. I was taking English literature class, and I remember my teacher was passing out papers and stopped at my desk, and kind of unbeknownst and surprising and a little bit embarrassing to me, she waved my paper in front of everyone and said, best paper I had in 5 classes. And I went, yike. and I went back and reread it, and it's like, I guess I got a signal that I, could write. So I hung on to that one.
Okay.
And self-published my first book when I took it out of the box on my 25th birthday. And now many years later, I'm still at it. This is my 31st book. Hardest thing I've ever done is writing. You're exposing what's in your head to the world, and they're not going to like it. And, so very scary. And so anyone that writes, I have a debt of gratitude and for their courage, and you're on that list. So thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to ask you for a piece of advice because I'll let you into a secret. As you know, my first book, Cultivate, The Power of Winning Relationships, it has had great reviews, well received, but I let it out with a whisper for that very reason. I was like, oh, well, who am I to write this? What if people don't like it? And then the second book, The Future-Proof Workplace with Dr. Sharkey, I was a little bit louder, but still a little hesitant. Well, tomorrow, Bob, I should receive the first round edits from our publisher for my new book that I'm co-writing with Eric and Ruby here at SkyeTeam. And so what's your advice? Because I have no idea. Is it going to be redlined, crossed through, or everything? How can I best prepare to open that first round of feedback?
Be hopeful that it's redlined and crossed through, because the move towards publishing these days, and actually for quite some time, is, oh, this is great, go for it. And you're, wait a minute, you're not going to edit it? Oh, it looks great to us, and there's less and less time spent on development. So if you do get both barrels, think feedback is a gift. Thank for that feedback, and then look and consider it closely. Don't take everything verbatim. Weigh the comments, and ultimately it's got to be match the vision that's in your head. And because they're not going to be out talking about it, they're not going to be doing interviews like this about it. They're on to the next project. And so, welcome that feedback.
With 31 books under your belt or on your shelf, do you still get that moment of trepidation then as you get the first round feedback from people outside of you and Mario, if you're collaborating? Do you still get that?
No, but I do have trepidation just on what projects I want to do. Like everyone is like, well, you go back and forth, and is this too much like what you've done before? Do you want to go in this direction? And so, for example, the next book I want to do, I already have the title for, I have the cover for, I already have the idea for, and have some of the content already naked. Life lessons from Steve Jobs. And already naked was a comment, was a reference he made in his commencement speech to Stanford in 2015, and his point was, you're born naked, go for it.
Well, you're making me laugh because we're on a similar wavelength, because in the back of my mind for a number of years, and others will confirm this, is a book that I would title Naked in Bunny Slippers, Tales from HR. And it would be all of those you won't believe what happens at work stories, and with advice on how to avoid them. So maybe we should collaborate on this whole naked thing.
There you go. Well, that's a pandemic book right there, right?
Oh, definitely. But that brings me full circle to this.
I'm wearing pants today, but it's a hit or miss.
You promise. Well, we were having a laugh when we came into the green room because we both had the same backdrop, which is why we were playing with passing the book.
I thought you were right there. Come on.
Yeah, we could both go and sit on the sofa in a moment. But the fact that we've been laughing at the beginning of this conversation just goes back to Work Made Fun Gets Done, and why this book for me is so powerful. Because I remember when I started my career, but way back when in banking in England, it was still, is somewhat, but back then especially, a buttoned up industry.
That's where you got your, that must be where you got your, I'm sorry, your accent.
No, where I got my what? Where I got my what? Come on then, lay it out there.
But actually, you're Scottish, right?
Well, the name is Scottish. I was born in England. It's complicated, when you're from the United Kingdom.
No, that's pretty direct. And I'm always, I love people from England. Everyone in America loves the accent, and so. Anyway.
I tell people I'm from Texas, but certainly early in my career, it was definitely not acceptable to have fun. You came in, you did your 9 to 5, everything was serious, you dot the I's and cross the T's. But you are turning that on its head, not just with the fun cover, but with this concept that we're all responsible for bringing fun. So lay it down for those skeptics who are still in banking maybe, or listening and going, no. Fun is for the after 5. Fun is for the weekends. Fun is for once a year when I have to. What's your answer to that? Why is this important?
I too, I worked in banking for several years in my career. So it's very, very formal, very stuffy, very, yeah. And so I've gotten a good dose of that in my walk of life. And it's not fun and placement of work. It's fun and work together. It's like there's no reason why what you're doing can't be enjoyable. It's no reason you can't look forward to it. There's no reason you can't be excited about it. In fact, you should be all those things, or you should do something else. Give you another snippet from Steve Jobs. Every morning he's at his bathroom mirror and he asks the same question. Am I excited about what I'm going to do today?
Yeah.
And he said for too many days in a row, he wasn't. He would say it's time to do something different.
So
it's okay. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to be excited. You still got to get the work done, but in fact, if you're having fun, the work gets done easier. So that's hence the title. So if it's not fun, make it fun.
Make it fun. And I love that, because there's a quote in here from Richard Branson that says, fun is one of the most important and underrated ingredients in any successful venture. And I have to agree wholeheartedly. And there's a little bit of bias here, because you know this and I know this. But SkyeTeam, woo, look at that, see? SkyeTeam, based in... We're featured on page 134 because...
Only the best.
Only the best. You're so sweet. 4 out of 8 of our corporate values are all about the importance of fun. Because to your point, life is too short. If we're not having fun, it becomes a drag. And
let me turn the tables and ask you a question. Because when we first saw that, we said, this is someone that's got to be in the book. And we immediately interviewed your team, and it was delightful. But then let me ask you the hard question. 4 values. I mean, isn't just one? Why do you need to have 4?
Because we look at fun as an inclusive experience. So I'll rattle them off for you. Our first one is fun, because relationships matter. And we want our clients to enjoy working with us as much as we enjoy working with them. It has to be where the magic happens, because you've already said this, work feels less like work. And for me, the fun about the work bit is not just on the good days where it's all, rainbows and everything's easy. It's the last 2 years when the proverbial hits the fan. If we're not having fun, how do you navigate the challenges? So that's 2. So now we've looked at it from the client perspective and the work perspective. The third one is the internal, because we've got the best jobs ever. Ask Ruby and Erica about when we used to go jeeping, riding Ruby's Jeep on a sunny Colorado afternoon and just bunking off because we could. #unicorns rule. And then finally, the whole point of the way we feel at work, where we spend most of our time, infects the quality of our relationships and overall happiness with life. The research continually shows it. And life is too short not to be having fun, and it shouldn't just be reserved for the weekends. So that's why it's full time.
Thank you.
It's inside out.
On the spot on there. I agree, of course, with all that. And actually, it's enriching because I got one whole book on fun. But actually, one of my biggest ahas in doing this book was that everyone we interviewed, there was hundreds of people, all the examples, which are all real life, by the way, in the book, no 2 people said the same thing about fun. I early on, I remember telling my wife, I'm doing this book on fun, and so I thought, well, what's fun mean to me? I go, well, that's easy. It's when you're laughing, you're having fun.
Mm-hmm.
I asked my wife what fun means to her. That had nothing to do with it. Fun to her is when she had a good day at work, she got a lot done, and she could step back and say, that was a good day. That to her is fun. I go, really? That's great, but it seems kind of staid. She's not. It's not a belly laugh. And such was the case with everyone I interviewed. They all had a different version of it, and that's great because look at the mosaic that's out there that anyone can pull from. So so it's not. So your version of fun is perfect, and I want to go jeeping with you, by the way. And my version is perfect. And this do each other's. And so if you're in a group, you suggest something, and then draw on someone else to do what they want to do next time. And now we're gonna have fun together. We're still gonna get the job done.
Yes. Now,
but because we set up a celebration, which is an incentive, which gets to recognition, which is another topic. It's something to look forward to get through a tough day or to get through the pandemic. God help us.
And I remember reading the story about your wife who was saying about when you and Mario Tamayo, your co-author, are together, all she can hear is the laughter and joking. And I should have had him on this, by the way. Next time let's do that, because it's a whole different level, because we play off each other, and I've known him for 34, 35 years. And so we'll calendar that one. We will do indeed. But it's not taking ourselves so seriously. And what I heard there is, it is an individual but shared experience. And unless we're having the conversation, how do we know if somebody's energy bucket is being drained because they're not having fun? And how do we replenish it or help them to replenish it, whether their fun is painting on the weekend and solitude and silence, or whether it's going jeeping Let's find a way for us all to experience it, because that's how we remain resilient for the long game and the tough game.
And the first way down that path is to ask, to have the conversation. It's amazing. I've done in companies, with work groups, like, hey, let's just take 10 minutes and go around the group and everyone share 2 things they like to do when they're not at work. That's kind of an icebreaker. And I've always been amazed at the results, because people say, oh, I had no idea that Tom was into gardening. I've been a gardener for years, and all of a sudden they got a new connection. It's like, really? You raise dogs and we raise dogs. It's like,
I love that.
On and on, and here 10 minutes, you're all a tighter team because you got more things you have in common. And yes, yeah, and that you can come back to 100 times, 1,000 times. So it's really so. It's like now the person that's skeptical say, well, why do I take time to even do that? Because that's now we got 10 minutes late on getting to our agenda. It's like, well, you take time to do that because it's the sizzle with the steak. It's the fun part can keep you going, can get you through this meeting. And I've been in a lot of boring meetings. I'm sure you have as well. It's like, do something about it.
Yeah.
What someone could say is no or not, and then maybe that's a signal that this isn't the right place for you. And actually going back to banking, true story, every Monday when I worked in the bank, and I won't say which bank, for several years, I came home with a migraine headache.
Really?
I had to go into a dark room and turn off the lights, and after a while, it dawned on me, maybe my body's trying to tell me something. This is not the place for you, buddy.
Indeed. And it's not easy. It's funny you said there that the leader says, well, and I don't get to the work until 10 minutes later and stuff, like it's a waste of time.
Exactly.
But every deposit in that bring your human to work experience increases the trust and the psychological safety, because now we both know we like dogs or whatever it might be. We have gardening in common, as you described, so that when I have a tough message to share or warnings of impending disaster to give, the research shows, my experience shows, people are more likely to speak up. And that's a win-win. If it's all just business as usual and the British stiff upper lip, then I'm sitting here silently thinking, God, that'll never work, but I can't possibly tell Dr. Bob that. And then the predictable surprise is it doesn't work.
Yeah. And then how come no one said anything? Oh, we thought you had it covered, It's like, Okay. Actually, everything you're saying is tapping on so many different things. For me, it's like, that's the essence of groupthink, that we all go along and no one really agrees, but we all go along because it's not our role. It's their meeting, not my meeting, et cetera. Or Dr. Stephen Covey, who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, which has sold 80 million copies, by the way. Think about that. One of his secrets was, or it wasn't one of the 7 habits, but I've known him and spoke with him on stage many times. But he used to say that, and darn, my train of thought just got lost.
Well, here's the thing. We've talked
No. This is a senior moment. Yeah. But I've got to come back to it because, okay, I lost it.
Well, when it comes back, oh my God, you have a great giggle. When it comes back, we will have to just pick up where we left off. I would say you need to do what my mum would do, which is go back to the room you started in, and then that will remind you why you came here. But since we're both in the same room and I still don't know. So here's the thing, Bob. We're going to go for a deflection. The audience will never notice this moment. This is fine. I'm sure it's never happened to them. But look at your desk. I want you just to pick something up on your desk that others may not expect to see, and just hold it up. What do you have? What have you got on your desk? Oh, what have you got there? Hang on a minute. I've got a little
banana with a hole in it. Geez, how's that work? Okay.
So tell me the story of the banana and the hole.
Oh boy, here we go. This is I was working with Hewlett Packard, and this is on my book, 1,001 Ways to Reward Employees. And I learned of a senior software manager that that once called someone in his office, which sometimes is a bad sign, but called in the office just to say, "Great job on that! I can't believe you fixed that software bug," and he wanted to do something to thank them. So he groped around on his desk and he handed them a banana from his lunch with the words, "I knew you could do it. Way to go." Now that's pretty. It's pretty strange if your boss would hand you a banana one day, but for this guy, he showed everyone the banana the boss gave him, and why it took on the story and an energy. And today in Hewlett Packard, in Sunnyvale, California, 17 years later, the most prestigious award for technical accomplishment is the Golden Banana Award.
I love that story. So I held up a unicorn because we have this running unicorn gag that I started, but I haven't stifled at SkyeTeam, and our clients know now, and they all send unicorn stuff and Chotsky. But what we just did there in 2 minutes, I learned you were at Hewlett Packard. We learned about a different way of recognition, the Golden Banana Award. It took no time at all, but it sparked connection. That's what I love about what you're saying in What Work Made Fun Gets Done. So
the book has 400 real life examples from actual people, any of which could work for you. That doesn't mean they're all going to work for you, but they won't work if you don't give it a try. And if you find one that doesn't, learn from it and get better. If you find one that does, repeat it. Yeah. And there you're off on your own. You want to make the book. Give me that book back a second.
Okay, here it comes. All right, it's coming.
Thank you. Okay, here we go. If you then want to use this to start, I actually looked at an email last night at I won't say how late, pretty late, from someone at a bank in Minnesota. They said, "I've been trying to get fun going here for so long," and it's well, one of the things that there's all sorts of strategies to do that. And one of them is if you get a resource like this, is you can just pass this book around to your own team first and ask them to initial ideas they like in the marketing. Now it's a handbook for the topic for your own group. And you come back, you want to do something fun with that person or to thank them for something they do, look what they initialed and try that. Wow. And then if that works, you can get more. I had so that's one of the powers of a book, is that you can communicate the thought, the kernel to a lot of people at once, which gives you kind of a quantum leap to implement it in real life, is what I found.
In our conversation, you've mentioned, you've got the 400 people. I recognize some of the names in there. Cynthia Burnham was in here. Michael Canik is in here. Some great brands and companies are represented in here. So tell me, what role have relationships played in your career and success?
Pretty much everything. We all are a function of, none of us are an island. If my high school English literature teacher didn't stop at my desk and make it, that's a mentor moment. I might not be a writer today if I, so every step is a journey towards the next, and those all involve other people, so other people that gave you a hand up, or other people that gave you feedback, and feedback's a gift. So hug your harshest critics, because they're giving it to you real. So, and a lot of people get hung up on that. Well, they want to be defensive, and just listen and weigh. And it doesn't mean you have to do, unless your boss, and you better do this. You got choice in the matter, but did it make what you're doing better, or did it make it worse, in your opinion? Because you're the one that's driving your own boat. You're,
Mhm.
so relationships are very important.
And you touch there on some of the characteristics. It's the feedback, the mentoring moments. And I know you've had a long working relationship with Mario, who's your business partner, co-author, etc. So what is it about that relationship that makes him and you essentially your best friends at work? He's your ally. He's got your back. What is it about?
He does. We're gonna have to have him back on because, well, let me put it this way: we met at Walt Disney World, the happiest place on earth. Is that a good signal?
Yes,
we were both
it
there.
is.
We were both there at the invitation of Ken Blanchard, who wrote the 1 Minute Manager. That he was enticing us both to work for him, which we ultimately did. And we were there for the backstage tour and learning from Disney. And we found out at the airport that we were going to be rooming together. So we spent a week rooming together, and so that kind of started. And then, as my wife said, whenever we're together, we're always laughing. It's not laughing just to laugh. It's like whatever we're doing, we just have fun with. We'll have some tangents, but we get the job done. I think it's so. Again, I want to come back to this isn't fun or happiness just for happiness sake, which could be an argument you can make. But since we want to be paid and we want to earn a living, so and we all do, so we can live a standard of living to which we're accustomed. It's okay to be paid and to be valued for what you're good at, and whatever you enjoy doing, you'll get better at. I guarantee it. So it's a kind of a great leap to get on. Yeah. So we got to leave the past behind. That in the 1920s, 1940s, you're paid to work, do what's fun on the weekend. It's like, well, do you tell me anyone who doesn't do work emails at night or something on the weekend or even on vacation? And so if we're taking from our personal time for work, that's eroded for most of us, then come on, even the score here and make sure that we're making work fun. That's where we're spending the bulk of our waking hours. Why would you punish yourself and do something that's so painful? Welcome to the Great Resignation. Why are so many?
Well, exactly. People aren't having fun. And when we're sitting at home in the same four walls thinking, well, I'm struggling, I've got this workload. All I know is Dr. Bob is in his grand living room with his grand piano. Look at that. He's got it easy. We make these stories that, again, deplete fun. And that's why the human connection is even more important now. Love it.
Yeah. Yes. Maybe that's it. I think everyone inherently knows this, and they're afraid to go there, or they don't think, they're afraid they'll be fired at work, or they're afraid they'll look silly. I just worked with a major corporation on recognition, which is one of my topics, and I can help any company create a culture of recognition where people feel valued. And wouldn't that be important at a time when people, are leaving, and retention? If you have a culture of recognition, your people will be 7 times more likely to want to stay working for you for the rest of their career. Research that I've done and seen, 7 times more likely. Well, wow, if anyone listening has a turnover problem, this topic is recognition is the answer, and part of recognition is fun. Recognition, that's surprising people, is having a celebration at the end of a project, or doing something fun to call someone out, to have them present their own idea to the management team. It's a form of recognition. It's a form of thanks, and and on and on. It's all around us every day. So I'm just saying, open your eyes to it, and such is the case with fun as well. I had everyone I talked to, I learned stuff from on this topic, and I remember I spoke to a woman in Los Angeles, and I'm interviewing. What do you do to have fun? And she said, well, when I want to have fun with the task I'm doing. So in the book, we talk about task, we talk about groups, we talk about the organization. So, and it starts with the work you have to do today. Can that be? Because whenever I've got something I really want to, is important to me, I really want to have fun with, I put on Yo-Yo Ma's concert.
I love Yo-Yo Ma. I love the cello. You love it, love it.
Well, he did in 2015. He did a cello of 6 Bach cello pieces.
I saw that at Red Rocks. It was ethereal. It was amazing.
3 hours from memory.
Just him on stage.
Yes. So she said, I personally hadn't heard of that. I know Yo-Yo Ma, but I hadn't heard of that. And she said, yeah, I put that on. And then I feel, because you hear the music and you feel the hand of God moving through him, and you can't play it and be working on something and not feel more purpose and meaning and enjoyment. And I go, wow. So, I immediately got off and got on the internet and found that and played it. And wow, she's right. It's true. It does. It makes you feel better. It makes anything you're doing feel better. If that's reading a report or you will have more inspiration. It's like, wow. Since I talked to her, she called me back when this book came out. She says, I just want to tell you, I went to see it. And it sounds like you saw it at Red Rock. She saw it at the Hollywood Bowl.
Wow.
And she said, I cried for 3 hours. It was so moving.
That was part of it. Being in that amphitheater, not just the location as the sun went down and you've just got him on such but it was the thousands of people, because it was pre-pandemic, who were there also holding their breath. And it was a shared but personal experience that was so powerful. Wow.
Yes, so we can learn from others. Going back to the relationship, you can learn from anyone. And do you think about that? Do you reflect on, wow, when you hear something that grabs you, it's like, wow, how can I use that? How can I do more with that? How can I get to know that person better? I personally am attracted to positive people. That's one of my life lessons. It's really important to me because I want to be positive. And if you're around positive people, you will be more positive. And so I kind of shy away from negative people, and I'm drawn towards positive people. And that, I guess that's by grand design. I don't try to, I'm going to learn to like negative people. I don't know. Maybe another life I'll do that.
So, right now, the grand design, though, is that you're bringing a positive impact. And as I say, we were exploring your latest book, Work Made Fun Gets Done. So those of you watching and listening, get your hands on this copy. I encourage you to read any of Dr. Bob's 31 books, like 1,001 Ways to Reward Employees. But get your hands on this. But how else can people learn about the work that you do with teams and all? There you go. Here's one he wrote earlier. How else can people learn about the work that you do at a corporation level?
Give me a ring-a-dingy. No, I've got a website, www.drbobnelson.com. How original, huh? drbobnelson.com. And on that website, I've got, services. I've got an online bookstore. I've got all my books at discounted prices, cheaper than Amazon, so I speak, I consult, so.
Call him.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bob. I've appreciated our conversation today. I look forward and I can't wait. That's what I was going to say. I can't wait for our triple act. Maybe I'll bring Eric and Ruby. We'll have 5 of us going wild in the next podcast conversation. But thank you.
And I'll start with Stephen Covey's insight that eluded me. Well, I'll give you another one of his. It wasn't the one I was thinking of.
Have you remembered it? Have you remembered the Stephen Covey insight?
No, but I remembered another one, which was seek to be this is one of his 7 habits, that seek to understand before you seek to be understood. So everyone's so trying to jam their message down someone else. So you're talking to someone and you're thinking about what you're going to say next. And just let that go and just take in what that person's saying and truly understand it. And that's a great form of recognition right there, is to just truly listen. I mean, that's what we expect of our best friends. Be that best friend to the people you come in contact in your life, the people that you work with, the people you work for, people that work for you. Listening is a underrated skill, so seek to understand before you seek to be understood is one of his 7 habits of highly successful people. Thank you, Dr. Covey.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bob, for the bonus insights courtesy of Dr. Bob Nelson and Dr. Stephen Covey. Dr. Bob Nelson, author of Work Made Fun Gets Done. Thank you for joining me on People First. And for those listening and watching, if you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe, share in the comments, drop Dr. Bob or myself a message. We love to hear from you. But go forth, have fun, because life is too short not to.
Thank you so much for joining Morag today. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. If you learned something worth sharing, share it. Cultivate your relationships today when you don't need anything before you need something. Be sure to follow SkyeTeam and Morag on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you have any ideas about topics we should tackle, interviews we should do, or if you yourself would like to be on the show, drop us a line at info@skyeteam.com. That's SKYE team.com. Thanks again for joining us today, and remember, business is personal and relationships matter. We are your allies.